morning and welcome to Daybreak Benue on Benue Television. It's a wonderful Monday this morning and it's cool in Makuri, the Benue State capital. My name is Stephen Abba.
And my name is Mercy Upa. Good morning. Good morning, Stephen.
Yeah, good morning, Mercy. How are you?
I'm very fine, and you?
Okay, I think a lot of things have been trending since the weekend, and of course, we're looking forward to having more things trend this week. But there's this issue that is on ground. We're talking about monkeypox. Monkeypox is ravaging Africa. I think the good thing about it is that, as I read, they said it's not really, it doesn't lead to fatal cases, as in people don't die from it. But then you'll be so disfigured. When I saw the pictures earlier last week, I was saying, wow. And the healing process is very slow. And of course, by the time the disease must have been cured, you will still live with the scar.
Yeah.
So and recently they were saying we have that in Nigeria now, but of course some medical personnel come to debunk that, especially in Benue State, that we don't have that here in Nigeria now. But I think we should be more careful when it comes to taking care of ourselves. It's actually bacterial disease that we can actually do the things that are necessary. Of course, I've not really heard any of these doctors saying do this and you are fatigued. But then it is spreading across Africa. It has even reached Spain and some other European countries.
And we won't want to wait until it gets to us before we start looking at measures to curb it.
Yeah.
Prevention, they want to do. One common thing that most of these outbreaks or diseases have in common is prioritizing hygiene.
Yeah.
That is always the first step to go, preventing, some of these diseases getting to you. Always wash your hand, keep your environment clean, keep your food safe, so as to avoid eating contaminated food, or foods that have been eaten by rats or spoiled foods. But that hand washing, that hygiene has to be prioritized. We shouldn't wait until there is an outbreak for us to go back to the issue of hygiene and then boosting our immune system by eating of fruit.
Yeah.
I remember during COVID era, fruit vendors made lots and lots of profits, and that's because people saw the need to eat fruits to boost their immune system, the need to have all of the vitamins in their body, because it was proven that your immune system can go along with helping fight back some of these diseases.
That is why it's there. That is why it's there. And you said something about hygiene. I don't think we prioritize hygiene in this part of the world. I said that because if you see the environment we live, or what you have around where we live, the way we approach, the way we cook our food, the water we use. Of course, okay, the government is not trying by doing one or two things, but like I've always said, if you wait for the government, you may need to wait forever. There are things the government cannot do. You understand? So if you see what is happening around our environment, refuse dump. We've spoken about this severally on this set, about how people dispose their waste. We don't make hygiene as our priority.
Well, first we have to get people to get rid of this mindset or this illusion that says it's a street talk, a street slogan: disease no dey kill Africans. First and foremost, we have to do away with that mindset. Disease do kill Africans. The mere fact that COVID has predicted that it will ravage Africa because of its poor hygiene and way of living, it didn't get to us. That doesn't necessarily prove, or that does not in any way mean disease no dey kill Africa. The disease don't kill Africans. It does. It's just by the mercy,
yes, by the mercy
grace
of God. And of course, I'm also relating it to the weather, the kind of weather we have in this part of the world. Here is warm.
But we can't keep daring
no
the weather. We can't keep daring this mercy and grace. We have to play our own parts. We have to prioritize hygiene. That is always the first basic step to go the environment to live in.
And you see, when you were in primary school or probably kindergarten, I'm not sure I passed through kindergarten, but primary and nursery school, you were taught how to wash your hands. You were taught the basic hygiene processes and methods. But by the time you reach university or even secondary school, university, there was no need for lecturers to teach you that, because in your formative years you must have learned all these things. but then we don't still carry it out the way we should, like we've said earlier. And I think there should be a campaign for that. There should be a serious campaign for that, because we don't turn these things to habit. We always use them when we feel okay, there is need for them now. For example, the hand washing thing was very common during the COVID-19 period, because you need to wash your hands so that you don't get yourself infected. But we should be doing that even before COVID came.
Yeah.
That could have even prevented some persons that even died of COVID, if it becomes a habit. We are supposed to imbibe good habits and retain them and sustain them. But we don't do that except there is a need, particularly at that point in time, before we now begin to say, okay, let us do this in case this happens. But we should use hygiene. Hygiene should become our lifestyle. That's what I've been looking for. Hygiene should become our lifestyle. We live it every day. I used to tell when we were growing up, I used to tell my friends that from what I have read, if you read the histories of how certain cities became, certain towns became, of course, I'm not talking about African cities. I've read about cities that became in most part of the US, and if you see their formative years, it was nothing to write home about. But by the time these people stay there for 10 years, for 15 years, it's a total change, and this change is continuous. This change is sustained. So thank God we have a governor that is changing the face of Benue now. I used to tell people that Makudi, as the capital of Benue State, is always looking rural. It's a rural town. It looks like a big town. It's not a city yet, because we are supposed to make hygiene a lifestyle. And by the time we do that, our children will imbibe it. By the time you are gone, it has become a way of life. But a situation where a child says, "Mommy, I want to wee," you just show him back of the house to go and do it. Or "I want to poo," you show him somewhere to do it. You are not teaching the child to use the toilet. By the time that child is 13, is 20, is used to defecating openly. So I'm surprised when people shout about open defecation. These people were not trained to use the toilet. So hygiene should be part of us. And you see, some of this, there's something they call vector. They're the carriers of diseases, carriers of bacteria and the rest of them. So if we imbibe certain hygienic lifestyle, I don't think we'll be having these issues of diseases breaking out, because by the time they do, curbing them becomes a problem, because they usually take us by surprise, and we didn't have any notice or any kind of preparation for that. So these are the issues we're having.
Yeah.
And I think governments and the people should do something about this.
Now, moving over to other developing stories, the federal government at the weekend moved to reduce the scourge of malaria. It named Africa's richest man, Aliko Dangote, astute businessman, Femi Otedola, and renowned banker Tony Elumelu to lead the fresh efforts to end the menace. Now, speaking at the inauguration of the team in Abuja, Minister of State for Health, Social Welfare, Dr. Tunji Alausu, said the country currently accounts for over a quarter of global malaria cases and about a third of the over 600,000 malaria deaths worldwide. Right. This is actually an alarming data here. But if you recall, there has been efforts on the part of the government to, curb this malaria that has been killing lots of women, and there has been an increase in pregnant women that have died because of malaria, and even children as well. There has been a series of distribution programs that have allowed distribution of mosquito nets to families. But it will surprise you to know that most of families, if you walk around to check, they just pack these mosquito nets and stack them somewhere in the corner of their homes. They don't use it. I saw a home that used the mosquito nets to protect the vegetable garden from animals coming to eat, the crops, right?
Yeah, vegetables.
Yes. So it means that people don't really understand the importance of sleeping under mosquito nets in the meantime, because mosquitoes in Africa, I don't know what the relationship they have in common.
See, when you were reading that piece, I was actually smiling, then of course laughing in my heart. Do you know that we don't have malaria in most part of the world? It's not as if they were wearing mosquitoes there before, but something was done and they were eradicated. In as much as malaria is a bad disease, malaria is big business, and Africa is the hub for this business. It is why we still have mosquitoes and malaria in Africa. It is not as if we don't know what to do. The truth of the matter is that solving malaria issue is not rocket science, and you don't need to be too intelligent to do that. If our government is proactive, if our government love the people, by now this administration should not be talking about eradicating malaria. It should have been done a long time. So the reason malaria is still on and is still killing people, especially children, is because people or some persons are making a lot of money from it. It's as simple as that. So when government is saying we want to eradicate malaria, and some persons have been fingered to lead the cause, is a good thing. It's appreciated, but they should do that fast, because malaria is the highest killer of all diseases, of all ailments. Malaria is the highest killer, and it's because we have mosquitoes everywhere.
Yeah.
Mosquitoes can actually be eradicated from our community, from our environment. It is possible. It has happened. It has happened in other parts of the world. For example, they tell you in the US they don't have malaria issues. That is why when you are going there, they need to test you. In fact, when they are coming to Africa, they need to be vaccinated against malaria, because definitely by the time they reach this place, they'll be bitten by mosquitoes.
Alright, so having on board, these heavyweights, we're having the likes of Dangote, Elumelu, Otedola, joining forces with the Governors Forum to see how they can bring in. I like the fact that when they say fresh efforts, it means they have identified that the efforts as in put in the time past curb malaria or prevent this rise in deaths, especially particularly that of children and expectant mothers, right? Hasn't really yielded much effort. So there's every need to bring in fresh ideas, fresh efforts on board. And so these heavyweights are coming together, and the Nigerians are having they are on the watch to see the efforts that they put in place, the ideas that they bring on board, to see how to a large extent this can be eradicated. Well,
I wish Nigerians the best in this course, but I'm also asking whoever that is involved, apart from these three big wigs we just mentioned, any other person that is going to be involved should not use this as a cash cow. It shouldn't be used as a place where you come to still exploit government, because government is going to invest heavily in this area. Eradication of malaria, like I said earlier, is not rocket science. You can bet, I can bet you bet anything on that. It's not rocket science. It's because some persons are really making a lot of money from that. It's why it's still lingering. And if our government is proactive, our government is has love of the people more than love of power, malaria should have been eradicated a long time. And if we can fund our researchers, that is, if we have one, can fund our medical researchers, I think that should have been tackled locally. You don't even need foreign aid to do that. It can be tackled locally if you can fund the persons in charge of research in Nigeria, medical research. We can do that. We can eradicate it locally. So this is an advice to Nigerians and all other persons that are involved in this eradication of malaria. Do not use this place as a cash cow to make money off government and the people of Nigeria. Let us stop this and stop it right now, so that our children will have a better future. But I think Mercy will do for a break.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll be going on a short break, and very soon our guest will be seated with us here to discuss a very important issue. Please stay with us, do not go away.
Precisely Thursday, August 15, 2024, a total of 20 medical students of the universities of Maiduguri and Jos were ambushed and taken away by gunmen along Otukbo-Enugu Highway while on their way to the Federation of Catholic Medical and Dental Students Annual Convention in Enugu State. Governor Hyacinth Alia, who has been away from Makurdi, the state capital, for days, arrives home to the cheering news of the release of these medical students. According to the governor as briefed by the State Commissioner of Police, the successful operation is largely due to the cooperation of government with the combined team of security operatives, coordinated by the Office of the National Security Advisor and the Inspector General of Police. Governor Aliahu says he remains grateful to the federal government for standing by the state, again wants criminal elements operating within the state to find another base as his administration is determined to end all forms of criminality in his area. He says a peace committee has been constituted by his party to unite members for the good of the state.
I remain very grateful to the federal government for coming to support and assistance in ensuring that no life was lost and nothing that would have constituted bad news have happened. I attribute this to the good news of your coming on board as men of peace, those intermediaries with this fine report we received this night. It is my hope that your term of service is going to keep bringing joy to all of us in this state.
The kidnapped medical students were 4 females and 16 males. Emmanuel Akula, Benue Vision News, Makurdi.
Welcome back. If you are just joining us, this is Daybreak Benue on Benue Television, your breakfast's companion. Mercy, you watched the clip of the rescue of the students, the medical students adopted or kidnapped by kidnappers along Enugu Road. I think this is commendable, and as far as I'm concerned, this was also swift. And of course, maybe you say justice was also merciless, because I learned that one of the kidnappers was killed during maybe they had some kind of shootout. This is commendable, and I think this can happen often. Anytime we have this kind of cases, this should happen often.
Yes.
We spoke about Ukwola the other day. She's still in the custody, in the kidnappers den. I think this kind of effort can also be raised for her and every other person that is under this kidnappers custody.
First and foremost, I'll start by saying that it was very sad that this kidnapping took place, within Benue State, along Otukbo Road. One, I would love to see Benue as a very peaceful place that had nothing, no form of association with anything that has to do with kidnapping. It shouldn't get to that point. I wish it never gets to that point, right? The issue of a bank robbery that happens in Otukbo, we're yet to hear that all those behind it, because lots and lots of lives were lost in the course of that robbery, and it took place in Otukbo, local government of Benue State. We're yet to hear that all those behind it have been captured. We're yet to get more information on that case, and it shouldn't be one of those cases that sweeps under the carpet. Back to the kidnapped medical students, some from the Benue State University, some from Jos, Maiduguri. It's cheerful news that all efforts have been put into swift and they have been rescued. We didn't hear anything about if ransom was paid, but for the fact that there was an exchange of gunfire and for one of the kidnappers to have been caught, means that probably there was not an exchange of ransom, but it was security agents doing their job, going after them and not negotiating with criminals, because Nigeria should never negotiate with criminals or terrorists or bandits or any form of that. So kudos to the governor of Benue State, His Excellency Dr. Yemi Hyacinth earlier, to applaud the federal government through the efforts of the police, the security agencies, for the swift efforts in rescuing these children. It's just kudos on the part of both the state and the federal government and the collaborative efforts that went on ground. Right? And again, it was recently that we interacted with someone from the medical profession that said that they were proposing a strike. NEC wants to embark on a strike, and they gave an ultimatum: if Dr. Ganiat and these medical students, eventually the fact of these medical students, they were not released. So it's good that these medical students have been released, and we hope that that of Dr. Ganiat will also be swift. And she has been in captive for more than 7 months, from what we learned, that she will equally be released from captives. But kudos to the security agency. It brings confidence. At least now, these bandits will think twice whenever they want to carry out operation, at least within Benue State.
Okay, let me just digress a little. You said something about what happened at the robbery.
The bank robbery
at Tutuku local government. You see, I don't want to, please don't call me a conspiracy theorist, but because of the things that have been happening in this country, in other parts of the world, because of the things I've read, I think sometimes I'm comfortable to be a conspiracy theorist. I'll give you an example. The kidnap and killing of the chief in Sokoto State. I was telling a friend of mine that anytime such things happen now, I don't usually just sit back and say this is just banditry. Sometimes I suspect certain bigwigs in our society. I may not have a hand to say it's this person, but it's just a mere suspicion. And I'm telling you, I told my friend that what happened in Sokoto, I'm very sure somebody sponsored it. Yesterday, the man's son came out to say that the bandits told them that it was somebody from the House of Assembly in the state that gave them money and armed them to catch that guy and kill him. So you see, so that will not be different from what happened in Togo. Because the truth of the matter is that I kept saying, our security agencies, if you make a phone call to them, they can track you. They can track wherever you are. So how come we can't track certain people? So it gives Nigerians the impression that we have selective, if we have the selective resolution for crimes. So you decide to solve this, you decide not to solve this, you sweep this under the rug and all that. Meanwhile, every criminal activity is a crime against the people that that crime was committed against. Hence, the effort to curb it should be the same. So now the man is denying it, that he didn't know anything about that thing, that he's been fighting banditry and all that. But what I'm telling you is that certain things happen that way because certain persons are pushing certain buttons somewhere. So that may not be different from what happened in Togo, as far as I'm concerned.
Greed for money,
okay,
using
so
human
now,
lives as collateral.
anytime, like what happened with the medical student, commendable, is it's cheerful. In fact, when I read it, I was happy. The people resumed their confidence in the security apparatus that we have, and of course the government. But this should continue. We shouldn't select whom become what. And
again, Stephen, I would like to add that there needs to be more proactive measures to curb this insecurity. We shouldn't wait until it happens. We know the routes that feel so unsafe, that these criminal elements have chosen to hang around and perpetrate crime. The Aliede Road, the Otupo Road, the Naka Road. We expect heavy security forces on, and sadly, there are a lot of checkpoints there. There were checkpoints along Aliede Road, but somehow most of them have been moved. Why have they been moved? And crimes have returned back to that area from the information that we gathered. So it's very important that we have the presence of security agents along Aliede Road, Otukpo Road, and Nakat Road to make these routes very safe for citizens, not just of Benue, but Nigeria, that ply this road. It shouldn't be heard, or it shouldn't be known that we're breeding crime here in Benue State. Because if we fail to tame the wings of these guys, they will grow to become something else, and to become a big force like what we're being confronted with in places like Benue and Maiduguri.
Yeah.
So it's very important that the Commissioner of Police, if he's listening to us right now, these routes, heavy security forces be deployed to those places to make those places very, very safe for motorists
And you see,
people to ply.
Mercy, when you hear news from other parts of the world, especially the Middle East axis, let's say Afghanistan and the rest of them, do you know the government in Afghanistan now were rebels, they were bandits, they were everything we have now. I don't know if the Nigerian government is weary of the fact that one day these people want to take over government. It is very possible. It has happened elsewhere. It can happen anywhere. And it is very important that we begin to think outside the box to solve this problem. Removes the sentiments of religion, region, tribe, and solve a common problem that is crime.
And traditional rulers, and residents in communities need to stop shielding these criminals, because these boys that carry out these atrocities in some of these roads, they hide, they return back to these communities, and they are being shielded, right? One, you may feel you're shielding them because of the little money they may give back to you now, but eventually it becomes the monster you create out of the problem becomes a threat even to you yourself. Take for instance what is happening in Katsina local government. Now some of these gangs now have grown more wings even beyond those that initially felt they were in control of the situation. Now they don't even listen to them anymore. They are equally a threat even to their own lives. That is how far the monster have grown. So now back to places like Aliede, Otukpo, Naka. It's very important that there has to be a collaborative effort between traditional rulers, residents in these communities, and security agencies to collaborate and work together, because some of these boys are children of that villages, of those communities, and when they go to the road and carry out this crime, they return back to their homes and seek shelter, and they are shielded by these people.
And one day, somebody said, there is always a Pharaoh that doesn't know Joseph. So, and you know the implications of that. Something might happen. You have like 30 young people who must have formed this gang. They are from your locality, and one day a Pharaoh that doesn't know Joseph is in town. A new sheriff comes to town, and they want to eradicate all of them. They want to destroy all of them. By the time that happens, the implication is that that community have lost 30 good heads, because I believe everybody has a good head. It's just that it's the normal human being that have been radicalized. So everybody has the potential to be nice, to be good, but by the time you radicalize that head, the person becomes bad. So the community must have succeeded in losing 30 good heads in the space of a few seconds or a few minutes. These are the things I used to tell people that, do you know how long it took somebody to become 30 years? And the kind of investment that must have gone into that life. And we risk those lives anyhow. We expose them to risks. And by the time this risk happens, this exposure comes to its conclusive end, people will die. And it's still your children that will die, because that crime, that criminal activity cannot be maintained for a long time. One day, somebody will curb it. And I'm telling you, most of them result in death. For me, this is the way I see life, and you should try as much as possible to prevent some of these things that is happening in our community. Like you said, there are monsters that are still growing. A point will come, you won't be able to control them. If somebody is not disciplined and you give him a gun, that person the indiscipline will multiply. This is why soldiers, policemen, security people go through a lot of training before they are handed a gun, because a gun is a killing tool, and the kind of power it you aggrandize by having a gun. A normal person doesn't think that way. So it is very important the person is trained. The person's mind is hedged, so that he doesn't behave outside the training he has gotten. And this is why I tell people that the policeman, the army, they should be well paid in the job they do, because they're still human beings. They have emotions, they have needs, they have responsibilities. If they're not well taken care of, and that training, one of the hedges is broken, things can go wrong. So we need our local chiefs, our heads in the villages, our political leaders should come together and begin to sanitize and sensitize people, because it's going out of hand. Who told you this will happen in Benue State? You just said that you don't really think that this kidnap will happen in Benue State. Benue State is part of Nigeria. It's happening all over the place. So if you are not putting anything in place to prevent it, it will happen. And I don't think we have those preventive measures. So it is very important that our leaders come together to begin to forge the way ahead for our youth, to be responsible and to be useful in our society.
At least again, not diverting, but at least right now there are certain things being put in place to make the ground favorable for people to thrive. And so our youth just need to look the other way around and see opportunities that are before them and grab them and see how they can make something meaningful out of their life. Gone are the days where one had the excuse of carrying out crime. Now there is so much that can be done. We have so much land that needs to be cultivated, and it has now been proven that with agriculture you can be richer than people in the oil and gas sector. So why not be the young billionaire from Benue State and make good use of this opportunity, the fertile lands that we have, especially now that efforts have been put in place to curb this insecurity, so people can now access some of these lands that in the time past were inaccessible because of insecurity. That would be a good place to start, because now this is a new cropping season that we're in the harvesting process. Harvesting is just beginning to step in, but we're beginning to see new crops in the market. It's cheerful news to finally go out there and find the Benue yam out in the market. Though the prices is not that favorable, it's going as high as 10 tubers of yam for 13,000 naira. But I got a report from Lagos that said Benue still remains the food basket of a tuber 1,300. Benue still remains a food basket because in Lagos you can find a tuber for 12,000 naira. But I know it's actually still high in Benue State because we are not used to buying a tuber of yam for 1,300 naira and 10 tubers for 13,000 naira.
Mercy is so hard to believe that somebody will buy a tuber of yam
for 12,000 naira. I got it
for death?
Well, if Benue State can sell a tuber for 1,300, then I will not be surprised if somebody buys a tuber for 12,000 naira. Then
I think we should just
the Benue yam is hot cake.
Let's move our attention to something else.
Okay.
I said in any case, NECO and WAEC henceforth will not be allowing underage children to write their examinations. In other words, if somebody has not spent the requisite number of years in that particular level of study, WAEC and NECO will not allow them to write the examination. The age here is 18 years, so if you are below 18 years, you can't write WAEC or maybe 16 years, you can't write WAEC and NECO.
Let's not have maybe, let's have the age that they have put there.
It is 18.
18 years. 18 years for WAEC. Now this 18 years, they're not telling you it's the age to leave university or the age to be in your 300 level. They are telling you the age to write WAEC. That is, you are stepping out of secondary school.
Yes.
I'm sorry to say, but news like this gets me walked out. Why? These policymakers, they may come up with their excuses and reasons for coming up with this age bracket that one should read before one writes WAEC, for the mere fact that one will not be an adult going to the university and be more mature and act accordingly. I have seen 30-year-old in the university that act like they are 13. So it really has nothing to do with age. But what really gets me worked out the most, and I get really angry for news like this, is the mere fact that these policymakers where their children schooling abroad, graduating at the age of 13, 14, 15. At 18, a child in US is already out of the university, done with first degree, and enrolled for a second degree or master's. Now when you come to Nigeria and you want to seek a job, they will tell you, don't be more than 25 years or 23 years to apply for this job, have this number of experiences, and yet we're seeing all these limitations in the educational background that keeps pressing you down. What's the intention? These leaders, their children are schooling abroad, they're preparing them to still come back and dominate and rule over the children of the poor man that couldn't afford to send their children out of the country.
You see, thank you. I like the way you are sounding. I like the emotions you are putting into this. It is very important to note here that the people that destroyed or are destroying this country are the people that benefited immensely from this country. For example, some persons graduated from school and there was no need to look for a job. Jobs looked for them. I remember my late uncle used to tell me that as you are having your convocation, as you are graduating from school, you see cars from different companies will be parked, waiting to employ students that just finished university. So what are we saying here? But these persons had the cause to become leaders one way or the other, and they are putting in policies that are not helpful because of selfish interest. I like the part that you said their children will come back and become this and become that. Of course, that was the intention. It's actually the intention. Because you see, they said 18 years. 18 years is an age, it might look small, but I've met 18 years that behave like adults. They are very intelligent. They are well spoken. They are very disciplined. I've met 18 years like that. I've met 16-year-old children that are very intelligent. They are well spoken. They are disciplined. So at the end of the day, it's not even the age. It is what you drop inside that child. Because the human being is a container. It is the thing you put in the container that gives it value. Perfumes. If you put gold in a mug, that mug becomes valuable because it's the container that the gold is inside. So it is what we have that we put inside our children that make them valuable. At the point, it's not even the age. At 16, in the US, the child is driving. At 18, he leaves his father's house. Or you are saying an 18-year-old is when he should be going to university. So I think we should reverse the way we think in this country. And do you know what it's doing to us? We are telling the world that at 18 or at 17, a child is not formed yet. At 17, you still need to chaperone a child or a young man. Meanwhile, in other parts of the world, at 17, the child is preparing to live alone. I don't know if I'm making sense.
At 18, out there, you're expected to be independent.
So you're
expected to move out of your parents' house, for goodness sake,
yes,
and fend for yourself out there. Not being restricted to now start writing WAEC at the age of, please. Can we move over from this discussion? But we can't even really move over this because this issue have to be protested. This issue, there have to be serious changes. But if they are going to stick to this, then to ensure that the employment brackets shouldn't restrict people shouldn't have things like not less than or more than 25 years with 10 years or 6 years working experience. It should not contain things like this and the clauses as criteria for being employed in Nigeria.
It doesn't even follow logic.
It doesn't even meet logic. How can you be 25 or not more than 25 with a 6 or 7 years working experience, and yet your country told you that at 18 you should be writing WAEC? How does that even make sense?
All right,
and then their children are out there schooling abroad and graduating at the age of 15 with two double degree, a double one, with masters, PhD.
We'll be
You'll
talking
find
that-
a 25 years old PhD holder outside the country
Yeah.
with already 3 degrees
Yeah.
at the back.
Yeah.
Now those are the people now they give preference to, they give kudos to, and they
During
go
employment.
begging them, call them to
Yeah.
come and take leadership positions because they have prepared them for leadership. But here in Nigeria, they tell you at 18, you should be writing WAEC. Oh please.
All right, we'll do for another break. Please stay with us. Do not go away. Glad you're still there. We'll be shifting our attention to the topic of the day. The Supreme Court has reserved decision in cases challenging governorship elections held on November 11, 2023 in Kogi, Bayelsa, and Imo states. A 5-member panel of justices led by Justice Mohammed Garba announced the ruling on Monday after hearing arguments from the parties concerned. Earlier in the proceedings, the panel denied Muritala Ajaka, the Social Democratic Party's SDP governorship candidate in Kogi State, a request for a full panel of 7 justices to hear his appeal against Governor Usman Ododo. In the earlier, we said the Supreme Court has reserved decisions in cases challenging the governorship elections held on November 11th, 2023 in Kogi, Bayelsa, and Imo states. And of course, the Supreme Court delayed decision on the Bayelsa State appeal after hearing arguments from the legal counsel of APC's Timipri Silva, Governor Louis Diri, INEC, and the PDP. Now we have our guest seated with us this morning, and we'll be talking about Supreme Court verdict on 3 governorship cases. Our guest is Barrister Alfred Dija, legal practitioner. You're welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, concerning these verdicts, we may need to hear your opinion about them. The 3 governors from Imo, Kogi, and Bayelsa State, the verdict of the Supreme Court.
All right. The verdict from the Supreme Court, I think the grounds in which they challenged the elections by all the parties were virtually the same.
Okay.
Because they talked about non-qualification or forgery, and they also talk about they said the Electoral Act was not complied with.
Yeah.
So those are the major grounds that the elections were challenged. And the Supreme Court seems to be consistent with its decision. As regards qualification or forgery, he has maintained that it is a pre-election matter. Yes, and they also maintain it in these particular decisions from the court. And also, when it comes to non-compliance, especially somebody did not score the valid vote, it requires polling unit by polling unit proof of that case. So that is what the law requires. And evidence where it's not sufficient, because mostly hampered by time, petitioners are usually not able to meet up that mode of proof of a case. And so election petitions rather are very difficult to win in that particular area, especially where it concerns large number of polling units. Like complain about 3 polling units, I think in Bayelsa, and 3 states, local governments rather. 3 local governments in Bayelsa, and 5 local governments in Kogi State. So these are much that can actually not be able to prove within the short time that is usually provided for at the tribunal. So in that sense, justice is very difficult to attain. If at all there are real issues that are actually supposed to be trashed out in the election petition. So those are some of the issues, and I think that the Supreme Court has maintained its position in terms of the legal issues and are giving their verdict according to law.
Do you think the verdict, that has been brought about, especially the recent one by Supreme Court, has vindicated the Supreme Court or the judiciary generally from that perception that they were being influenced, seeing that, especially for the case of Diodiri, he is of the PDP now, victory is now in his favor to govern the Bayelsa State. Now, under this APC regime and the presidential helm of affairs, does this in any way vindicate the judiciary of being influenced by the governing political party in terms of its judgment?
Okay. The judiciary has, in a way, tried to administer justice perfectly in Nigeria, but no matter how the system is, there may be corrupt persons in it. So when we say the Supreme Court has been vindicated, then it means that whether all previous allegations that were made were actually false, which we cannot actually rule out whether or not there was influence one way or the other. So they could have been influenced in the past or not. There could have been issues in the past, but what the decision has shown is that they have actually followed what the provisions of the law says. So in this case, you can say that the Supreme Court is vindicated in this case, not necessarily saying that the Supreme Court has been vindicated in every other cases. So that is how I look at it, because we are in Nigeria and we know that it is Nigerians that man this position and nobody is perfect. And in such circumstance, you can say that maybe there could be situation in the past, because we can see that judges have been sanctioned previously, which means that there must be an issue. So in that respect, we could say that yes, maybe the Supreme Court or the judiciary has awakened. So that is what my view on that is.
Okay, maybe I think the angle Messi is looking at it from is the fact that is the position of the judiciary.
Okay.
Their position, not just in Nigeria, anywhere you have a judiciary, even if their performance is 95%,
Yes.
and 5% is still having issues, that 5% will mar whatever they have done, because we expect the judiciary, in as much as we are human beings and we are here in this part of the world, it is still expected that the judiciary should be as transparent as glass. So I think that is the premise she's looking at it from. But do you think these judgments must have set a precedent for other cases, these other related cases that look like what we had earlier? Do you think this judgment must have set precedent for what is going to come maybe in the next few years during elections?
Okay, the precedent has been there.
Okay.
So the Supreme Court only reiterated its previous decisions,
Okay.
just like the tribunal heard and the Court of Appeal heard. So the Supreme Court now reaffirmed this decision, which means that this had always been there. So the Supreme Court now decides to reaffirm what the position of the law is. So in a way, yes, it's a precedent, and thus not that it is the beginning, that means maybe it's the locus classicus in the matter.
Yeah.
It has always been there. So it's not the first. Yes, it's a precedent because you can cite it as in subsequent matters that are coming before the court. So I think the Supreme Court has reaffirmed its previous position.
Okay. We have other lower courts. You know, like the elections of Bayelsa State. The Supreme Court was the third court that they went to.
Yeah.
So, but of course, the council said they won at all the levels. But now the position of the Supreme Court is there. How will it trickle down to the lower courts? Because we've had issues where, especially in Plateau State, where this court is giving this verdict, another court is giving a different verdict. So how will this affect the lower courts?
Yeah. Okay. In that respect, yes, it's going to affect the lower courts in saying that they have to follow what the Supreme Court has decided.
Okay.
So if similar situation that has similar facts and circumstances in that particular matter is the same as the one in which the Supreme Court has decided some 2 days ago, it means that that lower court has to follow because of judicial precedence, the principle. So in that sense, yes, they have to follow exactly what the Supreme Court has decided. So in the part, the law is dynamic.
Yeah.
And the law that is why lawyers argue one way or the other. Now the judge has to choose the one that actually is the position of the law. Maybe the lawyer will try to sway the mind of the court to do something different from what had been there. So in that circumstance, where there is no specific or strict provision or a decision by the apex court on a particular matter, the lower court goes one way or the other. But with a decision like this, the lower court has to stick with that particular holding of the superior court. So in that sense, it is a precedent for the lower courts to follow.
I am thinking that this could actually boost the confidence, just to Messi's line of thought, boost the confidence of the people in the judiciary. What do you think about that?
It is. When a decision is widely accepted,
Yeah.
certainly the people are happy and the judiciary is also happy, because it means that they have done something that the people actually want. But when a decision is not acceptable by a majority of the people, in as much as the judges always see themselves as being unseen, they will also not be happy because they want to administer justice, which the people will also be happy. So in that case, the judiciary will also smile that they have done something that is correct, not just in their eyes or in the eyes of the law, but also in the eyes of the people. And particularly when justice is administered,
Yes.
yes, the law does not look at sentiment. So whether or not you are happy about it, as far as it is the provisions of the law, that is how the judgment is ought to be given. So it is given, that is the way the judges apply the law. So anytime there is a decision of the court and the court look at it, no matter the injustice that the law has put in place, the duty of the judge is to interpret the law, the position of the law, according to the law, that matter according to the law.
Yeah.
So it is for the legislature to go back and change the law. The judges don't change the law. So if a law says that something should happen, and that particular thing actually brings out hardship, rather, not injustice, but hardship to the people, the court is supposed to apply the law as it is. And rather than going back and applying the law in such a manner that, except there is a way or a provision, another provision of the law that can give leeway into that kind of decision. Otherwise, law is applied according to how it is, no matter the hardship it may cause.
Okay, you are a barrister of the law. What are the lessons, the take-homes from these proceedings, especially as far as legal representation is concerned? In case maybe you have such litigations in the future, what are the lessons to draw from this?
Okay. There are several lessons to be drawn on this. From the one I can remember for now is that one of it is that there is no need of filing an election petition when it is obvious that that person did not win the election. And certain grounds that the courts have continued to reiterate, and you know that these grounds are present in it, there is no need. You don't have enough witness to cover the entire or polling unit by polling unit. The court has continued to reiterate this, but you still go to court without presenting polling unit by polling unit. How will you win? Which means you know from the onset that it's an exercise in futility. So in that sense, that why will you still go ahead with this? In certain cases, the apex court usually sanction lawyers for bringing such matters. They think that the court has overflogged it, and when you bring it, they feel that you are coming here to waste their time. The politician could do that for a number of reasons, maybe keeping their followers afloat, so that they can also remember that they are still in existence and all that. But it is a time wasting for the judiciary. Instead of doing other matters, election petition particularly takes precedence over certain cases. Now, people in other cases will be complaining that their matters are not being heard. Election petition goes there and is determined swiftly. So you are wasting the time of other people who are also supposed to get justice in a matter by bringing such frivolous or applications. So that is it. And also in terms of the law, you could imagine that there is another lesson I'm thinking that, or something for review. The court has consistently says, you talk about non-qualification of somebody to participate in an election as a ground of an election petition. But when you bring an issue that somebody has forged a certificate, they will say it's a pre-election matter. Now,
in the case of Kogi State.
Yes. So if you have actually said that this is a ground, and you continue saying that this is a pre-election matter, and if the party also goes for a pre-election matter, you say that you are a busybody. You ought not to concern yourself with the internal mechanism of another party. So in that way, you cannot get justice in a pre-election matter, and you can't get justice in an election matter. Because in the pre-election matter, the court will say that this is an internal matter of a party, because you cannot cancel somebody's nomination when you are not in that party.
But quickly, sorry, Messi. Age and falsification of certificates. Are they not supposed to be like a constitutional matter? Are they really a party thing? Of course, I know that these are pre-election issues. That should have been done before the election. But then, after the election, as you are bringing that case before the election, is it a party thing or is a constitutional thing?
Now, in that particular respect, what are you trying to negative, or what are you trying to cancel? Is it not when it comes to pre-election? You are trying to cancel the nomination of that person in that party. Now, the law is saying that you are not supposed to concern yourself with nomination in a person's in party.
Okay.
So that is why you cannot bring such issues as pre-election matter, because you are trying to cancel nomination, and the law says that don't concern yourself with nomination of another party. So you cannot from another party and then cancel a nomination in another party. So it must be candidates within that party that can challenge it. So that is why, but with the issue of age is a constitutional matter. But when it comes to, so when you now bring it, especially forgery, you now bring it an election petition.
Yeah.
They say no, this matter you ought to have brought it before.
Yes.
So that is why I'm saying that in terms of persons who are in other parties, it is difficult for you to get justice in this respect, because when you come here this way, you say that it is an internal mechanism of the party should actually trash that. Then when you go in the election petition, they tell you that no, you can't do this here because it's supposed to be a pre-election matter. So that is the aspect that we can actually look at the law again and see a way of finding a solution to it.
Because going by looking at certain cases that the court have presented over, and the kind of ruling, it won't be so easy to just predict an outcome or the verdict from the Supreme Court or any other, whether the lower court. And that's because of sometimes they bring in technicalities into the whole election proceedings, or they bring in certain things that one does not necessarily expect. Take for instance the presidential election. One would expect that the outcome, the verdict, to be even easier, but the technicalities they brought to the whole thing just relegated the importance of the detailed spell out the INEC had as rules guiding the election. And they brought in other issues to uphold that election. So going by what you said, that certain lawyers, certain cases are frivolous and they shouldn't even bring it to court, shouldn't they be going by citing examples of cases that happened in the time past? Don't you think it encourages one to just take any case to the court and they feel that it's a thing of gambling? You may just win, you may not win,
Okay. But we'll know that the substantial justice, when you talk about, talking about whether you have won the election. Now, trying to go and get a verdict through technicalities is like going against the will of the people. If the people have actually said that this is the person we want, and they have actually voted that person with so much votes.
But courts don't rule based on sentiment or impressions.
Yes.
It's based on facts available to them, for judgment.
So when it comes to the technical aspect,
and in Nigeria we're seeing that those facts can be manipulated.
Those facts, well, if we say that facts can be manipulated, yes, everywhere facts can actually be manipulated. There is nowhere in the world that facts cannot be manipulated. So in that respect, well, a lawyer can decide to gamble, but it is not for every case you just go and start gambling. What is the essence of gambling? And I don't think that a lawyer should put his mind at gambling at all times. So you don't just gamble. Why? Because you have the time. You are wasting someone else's time. So you can also look at this in that angle. So you're just gambling, you are trying to waste someone else's time. And you should look at a matter whether or not there is substance in it before you can go into it. So gambling alone is not an issue that one should always take in mind in doing an election petition. Or maybe that is what politicians do, and the lawyers also do it, but I don't think it's a good thing to do.
Bayelsa had an off-season election. They had here as 11th November 2023. And now that we're having this ruling, does it in any way shift again the calendar of conducting these elections?
Yes.
Another dragging the off-season into a deeper off-season.
Yes, as in, okay, he just became governor. The election that installed him was on the 11th of November 2023. The implication is that his election will not be running with, let's say in 2027.
No.
He won't be running, and that can become the pattern.
That is it.
Okay.
So that is it for governorship election or presidential election. The Constitution provides for 4 years.
Yeah.
So which means that the day you took your oath of office, that is when your 4 years starts.
Okay.
Then for when it comes to the legislative house, the lifespan is a house. So whether you come a day into the house, you are still supposed to go out when the house is dissolved. So for the legislature, it does not take you 4 years.
Okay.
It's just the lifespan of the house.
Okay.
So for governorship is different. So for governorship, your tenure starts from the day you took an office, the oath of office. So that is just it for in terms of the executive and the legislature.
There's something of note that I observed in the Bielsa court proceeding. The judge said Timothy Silva of APC submitted 2 notices instead of 1. You may need to elaborate on that.
Okay. Now the originating process for an appeal, that is how you want to start an appeal.
Yeah.
Is supposed to be is the notice of appeal. Just like, for example, if you want to start in the High Court, maybe it's a writ or some other originating summons. If you want to start in the election petition, you start with the petition. Now, for the Court of Appeal to initiate a matter in the Court of Appeal, you have to file a notice of appeal. Now, if you file 2 notices of appeal, and maybe they are emanating from the same decision,
Okay.
it means you are filing 2 different cases in one case.
Okay.
So the court usually terms such as an abuse of court process.
Okay.
So in that sense, they have filed 2 notices of appeal, probably maybe emanating from the same decision, and the court looked at it and said that this is an abuse of court process.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, is understood now. Now, do you know when the court proceedings were for these 3 states, because a 5-man panel was formed for that. Now, how do we? Because now, even as these verdicts have been passed, there are persons that are still aggrieved. There are persons that are still complaining that something went wrong. How do we curb the issues of biases in legal proceedings and verdicts? How do we, so that by the time I took you to court and the judge passes his judgment in favor of you, I should be able to say yes, there was justice.
Okay, that is difficult to say that you can actualize that, because it's perception.
Okay.
Now the person going to court, some people don't want to lose. So no matter the fact that they are wrong, and especially in politics,
Yeah.
if you say that your followers, that's maybe politicians would think, your followers may think that you actually know that you didn't get it, but you were just wasting their time. So you want to justify the fact that you have gone on appeal on a just cause. So by the time you go back and say that, oh, I actually lost, it means in the first place that you were going there on a course that you know that will not be successful. Unless you say, probably I did not avert my mind to this particular aspect, but I went. So now my eyes have been opened that this is the position of the law. So in that respect, yes, somebody can agree. But when somebody knows from the onset that he's challenging on non-qualification or this and this, and he knows that these particular things, he has no evidence to prove them, but yet goes on at the end, he will not come back and say that I didn't know, because he actually knew. So it's a matter of perception for people to agree, and which is difficult for somebody to just say that I lost.
The Supreme Court is the highest court in the land.
Yes.
And we still have international court. We still have ICC.
Yes.
Now, is it possible for someone in this case to say, okay, I don't like what the Supreme Court has done, I'm going somewhere else,
Yeah,
as far as this case is concerned?
Yes, we have ECOWAS court here too,
Okay.
or the ICC. But the courts in Nigeria is provided by the Constitution.
Yeah.
And the highest court in Nigeria is the Supreme Court. Now, an appeal does not move from the Supreme Court to any other court.
Okay.
So that is the terminal. There should be an end to litigation. So it ends there. Now, the jurisdiction of the international court is quite different from that of this municipal court, and particularly it goes to international court, especially where the courts in Nigeria have maybe failed to adjudicate on the matter, or where particularly the international court has jurisdiction. For instance, if it concerns human rights, you can go to the ECOWAS court and you can trash your matter there, especially if the matter concerns the state.
Okay, so if it's a human rights issue,
yes,
can the Supreme Court?
No, you can't go to
Supreme Court.
You can't go to the Supreme Court. After the Supreme Court, you can't go to an international court.
Okay.
Like I said, most times matters that go to maybe the ICC, if the state fails to take up that matter.
Okay, so now what I want to have clearly here is that you can bypass the Supreme Court and go to the ECOWAS.
Not in every matter.
Okay.
Not in every
matter.
No,
the matter you just raised, human rights violations.
If you have initiated the matter at the High Court,
yes,
and there is no need, the matter had already been done here.
Okay.
So the National Court already looked at it.
Okay.
So in the hierarchy of courts, the International Court is not included.
Okay.
When it comes to you go to the High Court or you go to the Election Petition Tribunal. For Election Petition Tribunal too, it's also clearly provided.
Okay.
You start from the tribunal, you either stop at the Court of Appeal if it is other matters, not the governorship. So you stop at the Court of Appeal. While for the governorship, you go up to the Supreme Court. So it is provided by law. So you have to follow strictly what the law provides. So generally the answer I can give on that is that it is how it is provided by law.
Okay.
So the law says that you start from the High Court in other matters, you go to the Court of Appeal and end at the Supreme Court, or you start from the lower court like the Magistrate Court or Area Court, you go to the High Court, to the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court. So besides this procedure, you can't just go to the International Court. And the International Court also, like the ICC, has its own strict jurisdiction, which is contained about maybe war crime, against humanity, all these ones. Now, and even at that too, there are certain conditions you have to. If the state will not prosecute these matters, then it can be taken to the International Court when it comes to those kind of offenses. So, but if the states have prosecuted these matters, then you can't take it there again, because you can't try somebody twice for the same offense. So that is just the position of the law.
Okay, if the law, I'm talking about the lower courts and even the Supreme Court now, if they deal with facts, and I expect it to sometimes being just black and white, why would we have a scenario where they take a case to the lower courts and then there is a different judgment from when you now take it to the Supreme Court? Now, in the case of these three governors here, the election that happened on 11th, 2023, for that of Imo, Kogi, and Bayelsa State here, we had a situation where the 5-member panel of Justice Mohammed Garba, they reversed the judgment, and now at the Supreme Court we are seeing an upholdment of this judgment concerning these same persons. Mind you, the evidence that they probably took to the lower court, and judgment was passed upon, is probably same that is taken to the Supreme Court, and we're having a different verdict. Now, this is still the one judiciary that is expected to be speaking with. One will expect one voice to some extent based on facts that they deal with, that is available to them. So why do we have these different pronouncements or judgments at different levels?
Now, the issue for determination is what actually is on the mind of the court. If the issues are the same, the facts are the same, the decision will be the same. But if the issue is the same, maybe the facts are different, then you expect a different decision. I don't think the decision in maybe the previous case you're talking about and the current case are the same. So, for instance, maybe you mentioned a different issue. Maybe there is a different issue that concerns the parties, which is a pre-election matter, non-qualification, and the court decide and give a judgment on the matter. It will be different from an election petition. Now, if one case you are complaining the same thing, that there is the election was maybe the party didn't win with the highest majority of votes. Maybe in one case the person had brought the admissible evidence in terms of proving by polling units, by bringing evidence, eyewitness evidence of what transpired, and the next person did not do the same thing. Maybe the person decided to bring ward agents or some other state agents to prove the same thing and the same fact. He may not get justice. He may not get judgment in his favor because the mode of proof is different. So it may be different facts, but the way you have gone about the matter will bring a different result. So the fact that the matter came from the same fact or from the same election, for instance, in most cases, the state House of Assembly election goes the same thing with that of the governorship. And maybe the evidence somebody presented in the House of Assembly, he had brought polling unit by polling unit election and actually proved his case. And now you come to the case of the governor. The governor decides to bring a ward agent to prove the same fact in that particular place. The court may hold a decision that that person who had brought in evidence by polling units in the terms of the legislative matter has proved his case. But in that same area, the court can still hold that that governor who had brought the ward agent has not proved his case, because the mode he had tried to prove the case is different from that. And even if it's the same judge, a judge cannot take an evidence in a different case and apply it to another case, because it has to be strictly with that particular case. So that is why in the same fact too, you may have different judgment, because the way and manner in which they conduct the proceedings are different.
Okay, now based on these rulings, what changes or reforms do you think should come to our legal systems? Because of course, many of your colleagues have said on this set that the judiciary needs a lot of reforms. But as far as election is concerned, what kind of reforms do you think we should bring in so that this issue of because if the reforms are straightforward, there are certain things that people will not bring to court. In fact, we're thinking that maybe before politicians even delve into politicking, the court should have sat them down to tell them, in fact, if you bring this case, if it's a pre-election case and you bring after the election, there will be penalties. So what are the kind of reforms you think we should have in our legal system as far as election petition is concerned?
Okay. Like the one I mentioned earlier, we have to look into the dichotomy pre-election, post-election matter. So that one is there. And in terms of bringing in punitive costs for bringing in frivolous matter, yes, the court has been doing it, but there is a limited extent that the court should do that, because you should not scare away people from trying to exercise their rights. So in as much as it is desirable that frivolous matters should not be brought to court, but the court will also weigh it as trying to guard people or trying to start maybe not allowing people bring their matter before the court. You have that right to ventilate your grievance. So you could come in a measure that can actually not actually dissuade people from bringing their grievances to court, but also preventing people when it is clear that this person had known these provisions, these persons or these lawyers have actually known that this matter ought not to have gone to court. He should have advised the client. So most of these costs should go to the legal practitioner. You should be able to stand your ground when the client comes to you and say that take this matter to court. You should not only look at maybe your fees that may be paid, but you also look at your integrity. So the reforms is that most of these posts should go to the lawyer who has failed to advise the client properly. And when you issue this cost against the client, he is just maybe one person. He may go and not come back again, but somebody will have to come again. Through the same lawyer, the lawyer will still present it. So, but if it's to the lawyer will tell you that no, I can't take this matter again, because if I take it, maybe I have my license at stake. Yes, I have cost against me too. So in that sense, it could also actually help in curbing those frivolous matters.
Now, looking at the case of Imo governorship here, where the Supreme Court dismissed the appeals by a court party and allied people's movements, they went further to bill them and request that the APM pay 2 million naira each to INEC, APC, and Uzodima, to cover the cost of their responses to the appeal. So is this a clear case of you wasted the court's time, you pay for this? Is this supposed to in any way serve as deterrent to those who see that it's glaring a case you lost and you still come forward?
Yes, I think in a way that is it. Now when you lose a matter and the court feels that you ought not to have brought this, sometimes it could be that, but generally, in a general sense, a party who is victorious in the matter is entitled to costs for bringing that matter. So in a general sense, the court can award costs. Most times the court...
Would you see this cost being awarded for case of Bayelsa and Kogi? But we're seeing this in the case of Imo.
It's at the discretion of the court in terms of these costs. Now, if you are victorious in the matter, you can ask for costs. The court will award it. If you don't ask, the court may not award the cost. So, but the court can decide on its own and award costs without even you asking. So sometimes the court, if it feels that there were actually serious matters of law to be trashed out, the court may decide to say that the parties should bear their costs. But generally, the victorious party is entitled to costs for trying to prosecute a matter which somebody else has brought, and you have actually made the person to waste additional sums of money. So the person should be awarded costs to assuage the fact that he has expended money to trying to prosecute that matter, and yet the matter failed by the other person who brought the matter to court, or any other party who brought the matter. So that's on the general note.
Okay, this is we're wrapping up now. I mean, you may need to have one or two words for your colleagues that are into this kind of cases, and of course to politicians who rush to the court to bring issues that are frivolous. In a minute.
Yes, for politicians, I think they should engage in other viable measures of keeping their followers, rather than employing the instrumentality of the courts to waste other people's time in assessing justice. So for the legal practitioner, we ought to make our research very well, and where we find that these matters are matters which you know that the facts cannot substantiate them, there is no need expending the time and resources of the party or in the case to actually go ahead in filing these matters, unless there are substantial grounds you think that the court can actually look at and make a decision one way or the other. So for the legal practitioner, you look at your matter very clearly and you decide it, make a decision, not minding what the client may say, but give the client the good and correct advice so that they can actually see the need of not prosecuting a matter that has no merit.
All right. Thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
We'll look forward to having a more interesting discussion with you.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for staying with us. We've come to the end of this segment. We'll be shifting our attention to the papers. We've been talking about Supreme Court verdicts on 3 governorship cases, and our guest has been Barrister Alfred Tija. Please do stay after this break.
Following the dissolution of the Benue ESCO of APC by the National Working Committee of the party, and subsequent setting up of a 7-man caretaker committee to run the party, leader of the APC in Benue, Governor Hassan Efalia, formally receives the committee in the state. Chief of Staff, Mr. Paul Biam, who had now received the caretaker committee members in the governor's absence, presents the briefs. The governor tasked the committee to quickly ensure unity of the party, especially ahead of the forthcoming 2024 local government elections in the state. He says he is confident the Benue APC will be moving to bring peace in the party, and that the coming on board of the caretaker committee will bring relief and remove anxieties among members. With regards to the forthcoming local government elections, Reverend Father Alia invites all political parties in the state to be orderly in their conduct for violence-free polls.
I'm quite indebted to the National Working Committee of the APC and all the major stakeholders of the APC who have seen the plight of our party in the state and have made some wise judgment to have you come up to remedy the APC, to bring back peace into this great party of ours. Again, I congratulate you. We gain based on the fact that going by your own profiles, which are quite tall, I've already served this party for quite a number of years, and we've been out there for the good of the state, various capacities, and I am very confident that we're going to put smiles on the faces of all the APC membership in the state.
Glad you're still there with us. We're shifting our attention to the papers again, and our first choice of paper here is Daily Trust. The leading story here says, days after killing Emir, bandits abduct over 150 in Gobir. That story is on page 4. Below the pictorial, 2 cops, trader killed as police shirts clash in Abuja again. Patrol vehicles burnt, groups members came with bombs, police killed our members, IMNN. That story is on page 15. And beside the pictorial, IG hands over 20 rescued medical students to Unimed, Unijos VCs. You find that story on page 4. Tinubu, others mourn as Emir of Ningi buried amid tears. The story is on page 6. Court freezes 32 bank accounts linked to #End Bad Governance protest. You find that story on page 38. Let's shift our attention to the next paper.
I want to move over to the leadership here, where the leading story says 49.6 billion naira National Library project in a shambles, page 4. He actually starts the kicker 18 years after. The writer says student stakeholders seek urgent action. Will complete it by 2025, says federal government. Above the masthead shades attack police in Abuja, kill 2, injure 3. Tribute as Ningi Emma dies after 46 years on throne. And then beside the pictorial story on the leadership, NAV strikes kill several terrorists in Kaduna, Zamfara, page 18. Now if we move over to page 21, the story here says, Ministry approves 200,000 minimum wage for shipping sector workers. On page 7, the story has it that IGP receives rescued 20 medical students, 7 others. And on page 16, Catholic bishops tax presidents on economic reforms. That's much of the stories time will permit us to look at from the leadership. For details, please grab the paper and read further.
And on the Nation, 2 policemen killed during clash with Islamic group in FCT. 3 policemen critically injured. 3 patrol vans touched. 52 Zaki's men arrested. That story is on the front page. Above the masthead, Dangote Otedola Elumelu back federal government's moves to eliminate malaria. And beside the pictorial, court freezes 32 accounts of individuals, firms linked to August protests. That story is on page 5. Okonjo-Iweala canvasses economic policy consistency. You find that story on page 5. And VP, government committed to rule of law. $115 million on airport terminal ready for inauguration. The story is on page 5. And below the pictorial, we have SEC to deploy technology in eradicating unclaimed dividends. The story is on page 6. I'm afraid that is the much we can take on the newspaper. We hope to keep watching Benue Television as we move over to our next program, Benue Television News. My name is Stephen Abba.
And my name is Mercy Upa. Thank you for staying with us. Bye for now.